Imagine working 14 hours a day.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, 14 hours a day, 6 days a week for 10 straight years.
That is a lot of hours.
Right. And you are pouring every ounce of your intellect and your energy into this single pursuit.
Like a passion project.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So maybe you're writing a novel or, trying to isolate a specific protein in a lab.
Or maybe building a piece of software you really believe is going to change the world.
Yeah, any of those. But here's the catch. Over that entire decade, you make absolutely zero visible progress.
Fear not darn.
Nothing. You have literally nothing to show for it. No wealth, no fame, no breakthroughs.
That sounds like torture.
It gets worse because meanwhile, your brother-in-law, who sells, I don't know, industrial wallpaper.
Of course, it's always the brother-in-law.
Right. It's always him. He has steadily climbed the corporate ladder.
Who's probably got a house in the suburbs by now.
Oh, totally. And he constantly asks you at Thanksgiving when you are going to finally get a real job.
Oh, man. That is brutal.
It is. And evolutionarily speaking, your brain should snap in that scenario.
It really should.
I mean, this whole setup is basically designed to psychologically break a human being.
Yeah, it's completely unnatural.
But the crazy thing is, this exact agonizing dynamic is the hidden prerequisite for nearly every massive world-altering breakthrough in human history.
Which is just wild to think
Yeah,
about.
it is. So, welcome to the deep dive. Today, our mission is exploring this hidden toll. We're looking at the psychological, social, and biological cost of dedicating your life to an extremely rare, unpredictable payoff.
Yeah, and it's a really brutal landscape. Because to understand it, we first have to fundamentally redefine how we view success and risk.
Right.
We're talking about the pursuit of what the source material calls a black swan.
And a black swan isn't just a difficult goal, right?
No, not at all. It's an event that has 3 very specific attributes. First, it is highly unpredictable.
Okay.
Second, it carries a massive paradigm-shifting impact.
Huge impact. Got it.
And third, which is the most crucial part, after it happens, human beings will immediately invent explanations for why it was completely predictable all along.
Oh, right. We pretend we saw it coming the whole time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We absolutely didn't, but we convince ourselves we did. And the realm where these black swans live is this theoretical environment we can call Extremistan.
Okay, let's unpack this concept of Extremistan, because the contrast here is what makes this whole thing so difficult to survive.
Yeah, contrast is key.
Most of human history, and honestly most of our daily lives, takes place in a totally different environment, something we might call Mediocristan.
Right, the land of the average.
Exactly. Like if you look at human height, for example, it's highly predictable.
Sure.
If you take 1,000 random people in a room and then you add the tallest man in the world to that group, the average height barely changes at all.
Because the extremes don't dictate the whole.
Exactly. But Extremistan is totally different.
Very different. Because in Extremistan, which covers things like intellectual, scientific, artistic, and even financial fields, success is wildly nonlinear.
Right.
So instead of height, think about book sales. If you take 1,000 random authors and put them in a room,
Oh, okay.
and then you add J.K. Rowling to that room,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
suddenly the average book sales for that group jump into the tens of millions. One single winner can basically claim almost the entire pie.
So if you are operating in Extremistan, you're playing a winner-take-all game. And the feedback loop is just completely broken.
Utterly broken. You get nothing, 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 and then suddenly maybe you get everything.
And by the end of this deep dive, you, the listener, are going to understand exactly why waiting for that sudden everything feels so viscerally terrible.
Yeah, it's not a pleasant wait.
We're going to explore the biological mismatch that makes you feel like a total failure. We'll talk about why you need to carefully select the people you look in the eye every day.
That part is so important.
And we'll even get into how a highly specific, slow-motion act of defiance against a boss might just be the ultimate survival tactic.
The visual I have in my mind for this entire concept is a remote, windswept desert fortress.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, something ancient and isolated, where people just stare out at an empty horizon waiting for an invasion that may never even come.
Because what we're really analyzing here isn't just a how-to guide for becoming a billionaire or a Nobel laureate.
No, not at all. We are dissecting why the pursuit of extraordinary success actively fights against our own evolutionary biology.
Because we are wired to demand a world that makes sense on a daily basis.
Exactly. We need linear progression.
So let's drill down into that biological reality. We have to look at the difference between the linear progression we evolved for and the non-linear reality of the modern world.
Right, the primitive environment versus the modern one.
Yeah. In a primitive environment, the process of doing something and the result of that action are intimately linked.
Super tight causality.
Exactly. If you're a hunter-gatherer and you feel thirsty, you walk to a stream.
Puke up your hands.
You drink, and you immediately feel better. The causality is instant. Or, think about building a shelter.
Oh yeah, masonry is a great example.
You stack one stone, the wall is an inch higher. You stack another, it's another inch higher. Every single unit of effort yields a visible, proportional unit of progress.
And our emotional apparatus is entirely designed for that exact linear causality.
It craves it.
It does.
Yeah.
Our hormonal reward systems, the actual chemical pathways that keep us motivated to wake up and forage for another day, they require steady, tangible results.
So when we put in effort, our biology expects a proportional return.
Always. And this creates a severe cognitive bias. We desperately want to believe that the world is steady and well-behaved because that's the environment our genes are prepared to navigate.
But the environment of a modern intellectual or creative worker is just completely unmoored from that.
Completely detached.
In Extremistan, you can think about a complex problem for an entire year. You can dedicate 3,000 hours to a theorem or like a piece of code.
And learn absolutely nothing.
Right. Zero visible progress to soothe your nervous system.
You are effectively alienated from your own environment at that point. You are putting in the effort of the hunter, but you're receiving none of the calories.
But wait, I can hear someone arguing right now. Well, obviously, we're sophisticated humans. We know the world isn't perfectly linear.
Sure, people say
Right? Like, we know about the law of diminishing returns. We know that more isn't always proportionally better.
Right.
I mean, I love coffee, but I know drinking 20 cups isn't 20 times better than drinking one. We intuitively understand curves and drop-offs.
We understand it logically, perhaps, when we're directly prompted to think about it.
Okay.
But our deep intuitions consistently fail to map these hidden nonlinearities accurately, especially when it comes to effort and reward.
So our logic gets it, but our gut doesn't.
Exactly. Let's go back to that baseline biological need, like thirst.
Okay. If you are in a state of painful dehydration and I hand you a bottle of water, your well-being increases dramatically. Oh, hugely. It feels amazing.
Right. It feels like a perfectly linear transaction. Effort, which is drinking, equals reward.
Makes sense.
But what if I dropped an entire massive cistern of water, like thousands of gallons, right in front of you?
Well, my enjoyment wouldn't scale up. I'd drown if I tried to consume it all.
Right. The utility of that water plummets to zero very quickly.
Because my body can only process so much?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your well-being becomes rapidly insensitive to further quantities. Given the choice, you would actually prefer the single bottle over the overwhelming burden of the giant cistern.
That makes total sense.
And that is a nonlinear relationship. These nonlinearities are ubiquitous. Honestly, linear relationships are the exception to nature.
Wait, really? The exception?
Yeah. We just focus on them in classrooms because they're platonically easy to teach.
Oh, that makes sense. We like simple equations, like a 10% increase in savings yields a 10% increase in interest.
It's clean. It looks nice on a chalkboard.
But life is messy.
You're very messy.
Think about learning a complex skill, like a new language or a sport. The source material uses tennis as an example.
Yeah, tennis is a perfect example of this hidden nonlinearity.
Right. So let's say you take up tennis. You play every single day for 6 months. You practice your serve. You practice your backhand.
And you see absolutely zero improvement.
None. You're still losing to the exact same people you played on day one. Your brain is literally screaming at you, this is a waste of calories. Stop.
Your biology is begging you to quit.
And then suddenly, one Tuesday, you step onto the court and the muscle memory just clicks.
Out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere, and you start beating the local pro.
Child development actually provides a stunning example of this too.
Oh, the language acquisition thing.
Yeah. Parents often expect this very linear progression, like babbling to single words to basic sentences.
Which is what the baby books tell you to expect.
Exactly. But occasionally a child will exhibit what looks like a severe delay. They simply refuse to speak.
Which has to be terrifying for the parents.
Oh, the parents panic. The pediatricians start suggesting interventions. The stress is immense.
Right.
And then, entirely without warning, the child just begins composing elaborate, fully structured sentences.
Like they were just holding it in?
Basically.
Yep, yep.
Sometimes they speak at a level far more advanced than their peers. The underlying capability was compounding silently, completely hidden from the observer.
It's a terrifying way to live if you are the parent because you are desperate for those linear markers of success.
You need to see the stones on the wall.
Yes, because in a primitive environment, the relevant information is sensational and immediate.
The tiger is there, or it isn't.
Right. The berry is sweet, or it's poisonous. But we've been transplanted into this modern habitat where the most relevant information is deeply boring, entirely non-sensational, and heavily delayed.
We are trying to navigate a nonlinear reality with a linear compass.
Which is why we feel so lost.
Neurologically, the prefrontal cortex, the logical planning part of our brain, it can sometimes override these animal instincts.
It can say, hey, we're doing this for the future.
Yeah, it can tell the panic center to calm down, we're investing.
Yeah.
But we are only slightly better than animals in this regard, and our willpower is finite.
So our internal biology is basically punishing us daily for this lack of linear progress.
Yes.
Our hormones are starving us of satisfaction because we don't have a new stone on the wall to show for our day's labor.
It's internal agony.
But that internal agony is just the preamble. Because if our own brains aren't making us miserable enough, society steps in to finish the job.
Yeah, the social dimension of Extremistan is arguably the most agonizing hurdle.
Oh, absolutely.
We're moving from the biological trap directly to the external punishment of peer cruelty.
So let's paint a picture of this cruelty because it is vivid in the source material.
Very vivid.
Put yourself in the shoes of a serious researcher. You live in a cramped, overpriced apartment in Manhattan's East Village.
Classic scenario.
Every morning, you squeeze onto a crowded subway train and ride uptown to your laboratory at Rockefeller University.
Which is a very prestigious place.
Exactly. You are doing intense, high-level intellectual work.
You are searching for a fundamental mechanism of disease, or maybe a new material property. You are hunting a black swan.
Right. And you work meticulously all day, you come home late, exhausted, and as you walk up the stairs, your neighbor, just trying to make polite conversation, asks, hey, how was your day? Find anything good?
And that's where the trap springs.
Because at the lab, your colleagues are tactful, they know the reality of the scientific method, but socially, to the outside world, you have to answer honestly.
And the honest answer is almost always, I found nothing.
Let's pause and really analyze that found nothing result because the disconnect here is profound.
It really is. Because from a purely scientific perspective, finding nothing is highly valuable.
Right. It's progress.
It's a critical component of discovery. You ran a rigorous experiment, you eliminated a variable, and now you know exactly where not to look.
And that helps everyone else.
Exactly. If you publish that null result, you save hundreds of other researchers worldwide from wasting years of their own lives repeating your dead-end experiment. You've made a tangible contribution to human knowledge.
I'd take that a step further, actually. It's like a software engineer spending 3 months testing a new database architecture, only to realize it won't scale.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Right. To the company's marketing team, the engineer produced 0 shipped features. It looks like a complete waste of a quarter.
But to the engineering team?
To the engineering team, they just avoided a catastrophic system failure down the road. The negative knowledge is the product.
But society does not evaluate people on negative knowledge.
No, they don't.
Socially, finding nothing is perceived as continuous, abject failure. The observer evaluates the scientist using the metrics of a watch repairman.
Oh, I love that analogy from the text.
If a watch repairman sits at his bench all day and fixes 0 watches, he's incompetent.
Huh.
But if a researcher sits at a bench all day and finds nothing, they might be eliminating the final obstacle to a Nobel Prize. The metrics are totally incompatible.
And absolutely no one reinforces those incompatible metrics quite like your own family.
Families are worse for this.
The family reunion is the ultimate torture chamber for the Extremistan worker.
It really is.
So you are this researcher finding nothing every day, and you have a brother-in-law. This brother-in-law is a salesman for a Wall Street firm.
He's not hunting for a cure for cancer.
No, he is hunting for quarterly commissions, and he gets them. Large, steady, highly visible commissions.
He is operating in a highly linear, highly rewarded version of mediocrity. Effort in, commission out.
And your father-in-law makes sure you are acutely aware of this dynamic.
Always.
Picture the dinner table. The father-in-law casually mentions the salesman, saying he's doing very well for himself. And there's this tiny, almost imperceptible nanosecond of silence after he says it.
Oh, that's silence.
It might be involuntary, but in that nanosecond, the comparison is made. Everyone at the table feels it.
That nanosecond of silence is heavy with social judgment. It is the tribe collectively questioning your utility.
It's devastating. And it compounds. You look over at your spouse. For a brief, terrifying moment, you detect a flicker of frustration.
Because they have to defend you.
Yeah, they have to actively fight their own instinct to be embarrassed by you. They have to mentally rehearse the logic of your profession just to defend you in their own mind.
Meanwhile, the salesman's wife is dominating the conversation.
Detailing their expensive home renovations, the new wallpaper, all the tangible spoils of a linear career.
The visual markers of success are undeniable. They are laying stones on their wall for everyone to see.
Exactly. And then comes the silent drive home. The tension in the car is suffocating.
Oh, I can picture it.
And it is amplified by the sheer indignity of your environment. You are driving a rented car because you're a researcher on a researcher's salary.
And there is no way you can afford a permanent parking garage in Manhattan.
No way. It prompts a brutal question. What is the solution here? Do you move to Australia just to avoid Thanksgiving?
Honestly, it sounds tempting.
Do you somehow try to curate your family so you only marry into families with less successful siblings?
While it sounds absurd, it strikes at the absolute core of how isolating this path is.
It really does.
I want to ask anyone listening to this to reflect on their own internal emotional reality. Think about that containable spasm of pain you feel deep in your chest when an old classmate asks, "So what are you up to these days?"
Oh, man. Especially if you've been working on a startup for 3 years and you still haven't launched.
Exactly.
Almost all of your time looks like entirely wasted effort to someone viewing your life from the outside.
We cannot escape the fact that we are social animals. Jean-Paul Sartre famously wrote, "Hell is other people."
That's true.
We can endure sleep deprivation, we can endure physical hardship, we can live in cramped apartments, but enduring the perception of continuous failure in front of our tribe is agonizing.
It breaks you.
It reveals a fundamental truth about our hierarchy of needs. The highest currency we crave isn't actually the salesman's money.
We don't actually care about the wallpaper.
No, the wallpaper is just a proxy. What we crave is respect.
Right.
We want to be validated by our peers. We want to be seen as competent, contributing, valuable members of the group.
And when you commit to a project with heavily delayed, completely unpredictable outcomes, you are actively starving yourself of that daily social respect.
Cutting off your own supply.
Which begs a massive question. If the biological lack of feedback is so frustrating, and the social pain of the water cooler and the family reunion is so excruciating, why do people do it?
That's the million-dollar question.
Do they just endure it because they've achieved some higher plane of enlightenment? Do they just do it for the pure, unadulterated love of the work?
That is the comforting narrative we like to tell ourselves.
We do love that idea.
We love the romanticized image of the starving artist who cares nothing for the world's opinion. But a realistic examination reveals that this narrative is largely a myth.
Really? A myth?
The idea that artists create purely for art's sake, or that scientists toil solely for the joy of discovery, is what the text calls a semi-lie.
A semi-lie, meaning there is some truth to it, but it's obscuring a darker reality.
Right. The activity itself can generate a state of flow, a certain auto-satisfaction.
Like when you're in the zone.
When you're deep in the code or the writing, it feels good. But that internal flow state does not eradicate the deeply wired human need for external attention and validation.
I see this constantly. Even the most high-minded, intellectually pure writers, the ones who claim to totally disdain mainstream commercial success,
Oh, they're the worst culprits.
they will still wake up at dawn on a Saturday just to check if the New York Times Book Review has mentioned their obscure novel.
They absolutely will.
They will obsessively monitor their email, waiting for a reply from an editor at The New Yorker. They claim they don't care about the glory, but their behavior betrays them.
Because intellectual capability does not grant immunity from basic human psychology.
No, it doesn't.
What's fascinating here is, let's consider David Hume, one of the most formidable intellects in Western philosophy.
A man whose entire life's work was dedicated to deconstructing human understanding, emotion, and rationality.
Precisely. Hume wrote his masterpiece, A Treatise of Human Nature. Ironically, a book dealing heavily with the limits of human knowledge and prediction.
Right.
Upon publication, it was largely ignored. And the few reviews it received were scathing.
Ouch.
It was trashed by a dim-thinking critic who fundamentally failed to grasp the core arguments of the text.
Now, you would think a philosopher of Hume's caliber would just roll his eyes.
You'd think.
He should know his process was rigorous. He should know the critic is intellectually inferior. He should stoically carry on.
He did not. Hume spent several weeks sick in bed.
Physically incapacitated.
Yes, literally physically ill. His physical health deteriorated due to the psychological blow of public rejection.
That is
He
wild.
was devastated by the lack of respect from his peers, even peers he objectively knew were wrong. If David Hume cannot intellectualize away the need for external validation, the rest of us stand little chance. We cannot simply logic our way out of our biology.
It's a really uncomfortable mirror to look into. I bet anyone listening has done this.
Oh, for sure.
Have you ever launched a passion project, like a blog or a small business, and told all your friends, I'm just doing this for fun. I don't even care if anyone buys anything?
It's a total defense mechanism.
It is. Because how do you feel when a colleague you secretly think is an absolute hack gets a massive promotion?
Or a huge book deal.
Exactly. Or, as we might metaphorically say, gets the trip to Stockholm for their Nobel reception.
The feeling is crushing.
Yeah.
And it often mutates into shame.
Yeah, shame.
These black swan hunters, the entrepreneurs, the researchers, they're often made to feel guilty. They are implicitly told that by pursuing these long-shot, nonlinear paths, they have betrayed the people who invested in them.
Because they're failing to contribute visibly.
Right. The agony of Extremistan isn't just the lack of income. It is the brutal reordering of the social pecking order. It's the subtle humiliations near the coffee machine.
And as if the psychological and social torture isn't enough, there is a brutal economic reality layered underneath all of this.
The economics are fascinating.
Let's say you endure the water cooler. Let's say you survive the family reunions without losing your mind, and you finally achieve your breakthrough.
The black swan hits.
Yes. Even then, the individual creators rarely capture the true financial value of their work.
The economic asymmetry in concentrated fields is just staggering. Data consistently shows that the financial returns on independent invention or creation are significantly lower than the returns on the venture capital that funds them.
Wait, let's make sure we understand this. The individual who bleeds for 10 years to invent the technology makes less money than the person who just writes a check to fund it.
In the aggregate, yes.
That seems so unfair.
It's how the architecture of the system dictates it. A venture capitalist operates a portfolio. For every one wildly successful inventor that generates a massive return, there is a sprawling cemetery of failed inventors.
Right.
The venture capitalist can mathematically absorb those failures. The individual inventor, who only has one life and one career, cannot.
Oh, I see.
The economist William Baumol argued that for society to benefit from innovation, entrepreneurs need a touch of madness.
Now, touch of madness.
They require a deliberate blindness to the actual statistical odds of their own success, because if they saw the true math, they would never start.
So society effectively weaponizes their delusion for the greater good. The creators take all the existential risk, and who gets the reward?
The aggregators get the tangible rewards.
Yeah.
The venture capitalists get the actual capital.
While the creators get nothing.
The publishers generally do better on a risk-adjusted basis than the massive pool of aspiring writers. Art dealers extract more consistent wealth than the artists. The institution of science advances majestically, while individual scientists languish. Consider that roughly 50% of all published scientific papers, documents that cost years of agonizing labor, lost weekends, and immense stress, are never cited by anyone. They are essentially unread.
That is a staggering graveyard of human effort. So if the venture capitalists and the publishers get the actual money, what exactly are the creators getting paid in during those 10 years of silence?
They are paid in a different currency. They are compensated entirely in hope.
Paid in hope. That is beautiful, but it sounds like a terrible way to run a nervous system.
It really is.
If our biology demands steady, linear rewards, and the reality of our work pays us entirely in delayed, massive lumps of hope, what is the math behind this? How should we theoretically distribute our joy to avoid going completely insane while we wait?
So what does this all mean? This moves us into a fascinating area of psychology, hedonic calculus and the economics of happiness.
Hedonic calculus. Let's look at this model.
Researchers have spent decades modeling exactly how our pleasure systems saturate.
Okay, imagine two different financial timelines. In timeline A, you grind away for 9 years, making absolutely $0.
You're living on ramen, driving the rented car.
Exactly. Then, in year 10, your black swan hits. You make $1 million in a single day.
A classic lumpy Extremistan payoff.
Now compare that to Timeline B. You get a steady corporate job. You make exactly $100,000 every single year for 10 years.
Mediocristan.
Right.
Yeah.
At the end of the decade, the math is identical. You have made $1 million in both scenarios. But biologically, psychologically, these two experiences are universally different.
Totally different.
The steady 100 grand a year delivers exponentially more human pleasure than the one-time $1 million lump sum.
It does, because the brain's pleasure centers simply do not function like a bank account.
What do you mean?
You cannot carry forward a hedonic balance to offset years of misery. Making a massive fortune after a decade of nothingness does not retroactively heal the daily suffering you endured.
Oh, wow.
Your pleasure system saturates incredibly quickly.
So my brain doesn't process the $1 million and say, excellent, this single dopamine hit covers our happiness quota until 2036.
Not at all. Psychologists have discovered that human happiness is driven far more by the frequency of positive emotions, the number of individual instances of good feelings, than by the intensity of those feelings.
There is a fantastic rule of thumb from the text here. Good news is good news first. How good matters rather little.
It is a profound insight into human nature. Mother Nature engineered us to extract joy from a steady, trickling stream of small rewards.
Like the hunter-gatherer again.
Exactly. Because for thousands of years, our survival depended on finding a handful of berries or a source of fresh water every single day.
Right.
We need continuous, low-level fulfillment.
Right.
You cannot eat a month's worth of calories in one sitting and expect to feel physically or emotionally satisfied for the next 30 days. You will just feel sick, and then you will be hungry again tomorrow.
So mathematically speaking, to optimize for a pleasant human experience, you must spread your joys out.
Yes.
You want a daily drip of mildly good news, a good cup of coffee, a compliment from a boss, a small task completed. That is infinitely better for your nervous system than one single earth-shattering triumph after years of silence.
That is the essence of hedonic calculus. But there is a darker corollary to this rule. The exact same mechanism applies to pain, but in reverse.
Walk me through the pain calculus.
If frequent small joys are optimal, frequent small pains are torturous.
Okay.
It is vastly preferable to lump all your suffering into one brief, acute period rather than have it spread out over a long duration.
Like ripping off a Band-Aid.
Exactly. Chronic, slow-drip pain, like a nagging injury, a toxic low-level conflict at work, a daily feeling of inadequacy, is far more destructive to the human psyche than one massive, acute disaster that you can process and move past.
Wait a minute. If you combine these two rules, Extremistan forces us to do the exact opposite of what is biologically optimal.
Yes, it does.
It forces us to endure spread out, daily, chronic pain, the pure cruelty, the finding nothing in the lab, the lack of respect. And at the exact same time, it takes all our joy and delays it into one massive, unpredictable lump that may never even arrive.
That is the ultimate trap. Extremistan is the perfect hedonic torture chamber. It is engineered to maximize chronic stress and minimize daily joy.
So what are we supposed to do with this information?
That's the challenge.
If Mother Nature wants me to be a wallpaper salesman getting a steady daily drip of commissions, but my soul wants to cure a disease or write a symphony, am I just doomed? How does anyone actually survive this hedonic deficit without completely losing their minds?
To survive, you must entirely reject the game.
Reject it.
You cannot try to balance the asymmetry of pains and joys because the math will always defeat you. You have to step outside the hedonic calculus entirely. You must learn to inhabit a psychological space that can be described as the antechamber of hope.
The antechamber of hope. I love that. This is where the concepts get wonderfully philosophical and deeply literary.
It's a beautiful metaphor.
To understand this mindset, we have to look at a specific psychological profile embodied by a character from the text named Yevgenia, and her obsession with a mid-20th century Italian novel called Il deserto dei Tartari.
Or The Desert of the Tartars by Dino Buzzati. It is a masterwork that perfectly isolates the psychology of waiting for a rare, massive event.
The plot of this novel is haunting, and it maps perfectly onto the Extremistan experience.
Walk us through it.
So it follows a man named Giovanni Drogo. He is a newly minted junior officer, fresh out of the military academy, full of ambition. He fully expects his life to follow a linear progression of promotions, glorious battles, and social status.
He anticipates the standard mediocristan career path.
Exactly. But his very first assignment derails everything. He is posted to the Bastiani fortress.
The desert fortress.
Right. And this isn't a glamorous command. It's a remote, decaying outpost on the edge of an utterly barren desert. It is days away from civilization by horseback.
Middle of nowhere.
There are no social events, no opportunities for political maneuvering, no society. Its sole reason for existence is to guard a mountain pass against a mythical historical enemy, the Tartars, who haven't been seen in generations.
Drogo's initial reaction is entirely rational. He hates it.
Of course he does.
He recognizes it as a career dead end. He plans to serve his minimum time and escape back to the city.
He actually finds a way out. He gets a medical evaluation that gives him a loophole to request a transfer after only 4 months.
Oh, wow.
He decides to take it. He is literally packing his bags to leave. But in his final moments at the fort, he stands by a window in the medical office, looking out over the desolate expanse of the desert.
And a profound psychological shift occurs.
He is suddenly ensnared by what the book describes as the sweet trap of anticipation.
The sweet trap.
The sheer, absolute silence of the landscape, the imposing walls of the fort, the intoxicating possibility that maybe, just maybe, the massive defining battle of his life will come over those hills. It paralyzes him.
The atmosphere of the fortress is thick with the pure distillation of waiting. Every soldier in that fort is existing solely for this sensational, lumpy event.
Yes.
They have abandoned daily joys for the promise of one massive payoff.
And the obsession becomes a collective hallucination. The men stare at the northern horizon with such intensity for so many years that the moment a stray animal or a shadow appears on the edge of the desert, the entire fort goes on high alert.
Convinced the enemy attack has finally begun.
Yes. They are so desperate for the black swan that they hallucinate its arrival.
It is a powerful metaphor for the entrepreneur who sees a massive market shift in every minor news article.
Or the scientist who sees a breakthrough in every statistical anomaly.
Exactly, and the tragedy of Drogo is absolute.
Because he doesn't leave after 4 months. He stays. He spends 35 years extending his tour of duty.
35 years.
He sacrifices his entire youth, his chance at a family, his life in the city, all to wait for an enemy from a desert no human has ever crossed. He wants to rise to the occasion just once.
And the resolution of his waiting.
It's the ultimate dark irony. Drogo grows old, his health fails, he is eventually forced to leave the fort to seek medical treatment.
And then?
While he is lying on his deathbed in a miserable roadside inn, the attack finally happens.
Of course it does.
The Tartars arrive. The battle he sacrificed 35 years for commences, and he misses it entirely.
It is a devastating parable. 35 years of chronic waiting for a few randomly distributed hours of glory, which he ultimately does not even get to experience.
It's so sad.
It highlights the brutal randomness of Extremistan. You can do everything right, you can wait with perfect discipline, and the timing can still completely betray you.
But this brings us to a fascinating question about the character Yevgenia, the one who is obsessed with this book.
Right, why would she like this?
Why would she love such a thoroughly depressing story? She read it when she was 13. She was so captivated she learned Italian just to read Buzzati's original text.
That's dedication.
Yet she admits she never had the heart to read the final chapter. Why refuse the ending?
Because for Yevgenia, the plot's resolution is completely irrelevant. She understood that the true subject of the book is the psychological state of being.
Okay.
Yevgenia deeply resonated with what we can call the cathartic simplicity of a single purpose.
The cathartic simplicity of a single purpose. I love that phrasing.
She recognized that her own life, as an intellectual hunting for her own breakthroughs, was going to mirror Giovanni Drogo's.
She saw herself in him.
Yes. She was willingly entering the antechamber of hope. She was choosing to sacrifice the daily, linear consolations of a normal life. The steady paycheck, the predictable weekends, the social climbing, in exchange for a singular, monumental focus.
She recognized the trap, and she chose to walk into it.
Precisely, because when you successfully step outside the hedonic game of small rewards, the anticipation itself becomes your daily sustenance.
The waiting becomes the point.
The waiting becomes the architecture of your life. There is a deeply provocative thought embedded here. Be careful what you wish for. It is entirely possible that Yevgenia was actually happier before her massive success arrived than she was after it.
That is wild to think about. Once the black swan arrives, the tension is released.
The antechamber dissolves.
The purpose that organized your entire existence is suddenly gone.
Yes. The struggle provides the meaning. But acknowledging the romance of the antechamber doesn't make it any easier to survive on a practical level.
No, it doesn't.
Which forces us to ask, how did Giovanni Drogo actually endure 35 years of waiting without completely losing his mind.
That is a crucial pivot to the practicalities of survival, because there's a very specific pragmatic detail about Drogo's situation at the Bastiani fortress.
What is it?
How did he survive 35 years? He had no brother-in-law.
The absence of the Wall Street salesman.
Exactly. Drogo was completely insulated. He wasn't going home every Thanksgiving to sit across from someone who was pulling down massive commissions and asking him about his progress.
He wasn't being measured against the wallpaper.
He had companions in his madness. He was surrounded by a community of soldiers who were all standing on the wall, squinting at the exact same empty horizon.
This is a foundational survival tactic for anyone operating in Extremistan. We established earlier that humans are social animals and that we crave respect.
Right.
But we need to refine that definition. We are fundamentally local animals.
Local animals, how does that change the equation?
It means our biological need for validation is overwhelmingly tied to the immediate physical neighborhood of people we interact with daily.
The people we actually see.
The people we make eye contact with. The people in our office, our household, our immediate friend group.
Okay.
If the rest of the abstract macro world thinks you are a complete fool, it barely registers on your nervous system, provided your local immediate tribe respects you.
That's fascinating.
As the underlying argument suggests, our cognitive shallowness can actually be weaponized for our own survival.
We can hack our own need for peer validation by radically altering who we allow to be our peers.
Exactly. We cannot turn off the need for respect, but we have total agency over whose respect we care about.
Right.
Historically, there were almost no examples of individuals achieving massive nonlinear breakthroughs entirely in a vacuum, without any peer validation. The trick is that they found that validation within intensely insulated micro-communities.
History is full of these Bastiani fortresses. Think about the ancient philosophical schools, the Stoics, the academic skeptics, the cynics.
Or religious sects like these scenes.
And in more modern times, artistic and political movements. The surrealists in Paris, the dadaists, the anarchists, the hippies in the 60s, various fundamentalist groups.
What is the unifying characteristic of all these disparate groups? They constructed a microcosm.
They built an insulated reality with a totally inverted value system.
Yes. Outside the walls of their group, their ideas were considered absurd, dangerous, or financially ruinous. But inside the group, those exact same ideas made you a hero.
They provided local respect for nonlinear pursuits. I think about how this applies today. If you are a solo indie game developer spending 5 years building a game nobody has ever seen, you cannot hang out exclusively with investment bankers.
They will destroy your psyche.
You have to find a Discord server full of other indie devs. You have to find a niche subreddit. You need a Bastiani fortress. The rule is simple. The members of the group can be ostracized together, which is vastly better than being ostracized alone.
Ostracized together is the key. You need fellow sentinels on the wall. When you start to doubt yourself, you need someone next to you to say, no, I saw a shadow in the desert too. Keep looking. The Tartars are coming.
So we have explored the artists, the writers, the scientists, people who endure the long silence waiting for one massive positive event. But there is another breed of Extremistan player.
Oh, yes.
People who actively, mathematically play this game with capital every single day. What about financial traders?
That introduces us to a masterclass in behavioral control embodied by a character named Nero Tulip. Nero Tulip is a fascinating study. He's a classicist, he speaks multiple languages, and he is an extremely successful yet hyper-conservative trader.
He is the complete inverse of the bohemian romantic Yevgenia.
Contrast their profiles for us. It highlights the different ways to adapt to this environment.
Let's look at Nero's physical and psychological reality. He carries profound trauma. He survived a horrific helicopter crash.
Oh, wow.
The trauma left him with a stiff, unnatural gait and a tendency to become incredibly arrogant and risk-seeking after periods of success.
So he had to fight his own nature.
To counter his own dangerous impulses, he developed an intense, almost paranoid financial discipline. During his long recovery in a London hospital, immobilized for months, he refused television.
What did he do instead?
He just stared.
Yeah.
He memorized the exact 14 cracks in the ceiling above his bed. He counted the 63 window panes in the building across the street.
An obsessive, hyper-vigilant mind trapped in a broken body, forcing itself to find order in minutia. Exactly. He meets Yevgenia in Venice, in the lobby of the Hotel Daniele. They have an affair, but their daily lives are entirely incompatible.
How so?
Yevgenia is a creature of the night. Nero wakes up at dawn, even on Sunday. Yevgenia surrounds herself with intellectuals and philosophers. Nero prefers the company of aggressive, street-smart traders from Brooklyn.
Because they're practical.
Right. If Jenna pretends to disdain money, Nero is hyper-focused on it, but only as a metric of survival.
How does he manage his intellectual life?
With rigid compartmentalization, he spends exactly 1 hour every morning working on a complex treatise on probability.
Just 1 hour.
When the hour is up, he closes the notebook and refuses to think about it for the rest of the day. He divides the world not into the educated and uneducated, but into those who can connect the dots and those who cannot.
Neuropsychology is the perfect vehicle to explore the core financial strategies of Extremistan. In this highly unpredictable environment, there are essentially two ways to take risks. You can choose to be exposed to a bleed or a blow-up.
Let's break down the blow-up first. This is option A, the strategy of the turkey.
The turkey strategy.
The turkey strategy is incredibly common because it hacks our hedonic desire for steady rewards. In this model, you gamble massive amounts of capital dollars to win a steady, highly predictable succession of pennies.
So you risk everything just to make a tiny bit of profit every day.
Yes. And because you win those pennies almost every single day, you appear to be an absolute genius.
Yeah.
Your hedonic system is thrilled, your boss is thrilled, your peers respect you.
You are the Wall Street salesman bringing in steady commissions.
It looks flawlessly safe.
Until Thanksgiving arrives.
Exactly. Until the hidden black swan materializes. The risk was completely masked by the frequency of the tiny wins.
Right.
A historical example would be the large American banks in the summer of 1982. They had been playing this game for years, looking like steady profit engines, until an unpredictable crisis caused them to lose close to everything they had ever cumulatively earned.
That's terrifying.
The blow-up wipes out decades of linear progress in a single afternoon.
So the turkey wins, and then dies. Option B is the exact inverse, the reverse turkey. This is the bleed strategy, and this is the game Nero Tulip plays.
The bleed strategy requires you to risk a succession of pennies to potentially win dollars. You are betting that the rare, massive, unpredictable event will happen.
Okay.
You structure your life to lose steadily, you bleed pennies every single day, you accept constant minor defeats.
Right.
But you are structurally protected. No single daily loss can ever bankrupt you. And then eventually the world shifts, a black swan occurs, and you capture an extraordinarily large profit that eclipses decades of bleeding.
Okay, I have a massive pushback here.
Let's hear it.
If option B, the bleed, is mathematically superior because it guarantees you cannot blow up and offers essentially unlimited upside, why isn't it the default strategy? Why doesn't every single trader or entrepreneur operate this way?
Because the biological cost of the bleed strategy is terrifying. The math is sound, but the human animal cannot endure it.
Why not?
Executing the bleed requires an almost superhuman capacity for delayed gratification, absolute unwavering belief in your own thesis, and the psychological fortitude to be viewed as a constant failure by your peers and clients.
But it goes beyond just hurt feelings, right? It physically changes the brain.
It does. The reality of continuous minor losses is akin to Chinese water torture. The stress is unyielding.
Yeah.
Nero discovered that these daily financial and social insults bypassed his logical prefrontal cortex, the part of him that knew the math was right, and hammered directly into his emotional brain.
The constant drip of failure.
Yes. We often talk about the benefits of acute stress. A tiger jumps out, your adrenaline spikes, you run away, and then the tiger is gone. The stress cycle completes, your body recovers.
Right.
But the bleed provides no recovery. It is chronic, low-level, unresolving stress. And chronic stress physically attacks the hippocampus.
The hippocampus is the memory and learning center, isn't it?
It is, and it is highly plastic, meaning it is deeply affected by environmental factors. When subjected to the continuous cortisol drip of daily failure, the hippocampus actually incurs irreversible atrophy.
It shrinks.
It shrinks. There is a deeply unsettling reality here. Contrary to the cliche that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, these small, continuous, seemingly harmless stressors do not build resilience. They can literally amputate part of your cognitive self.
Amputate part of yourself. That is horrific. By constantly playing the mathematically smart game, you are systematically destroying your own brain architecture.
Exactly.
So how did Nero Tulip survive? How does a reverse turkey protect their hippocampus and maintain their dignity while bleeding money every day?
This is the genius of Nero. He developed a highly specific, rigorous set of behavioral controls to trick his own biology and manipulate the social dynamics around him.
Let's go through Nero's masterclass in survival, because these tactics are incredible. First, he aggressively managed his information diet.
Information is toxic.
He realized that high-frequency information was poisoning his nervous system. If he checked his portfolio every minute, he felt the pain of the bleed every minute.
So he altered the feedback loop.
He radically altered it. He completely refused to look at any performance metric, any printout of his track record that covered a time frame shorter than 10 years.
10 years. That requires an astronomical level of discipline.
He understood that anything less than a decade was just noise that would trigger his amygdala, and he had one massive anchor to hold on. But he couldn't completely isolate himself. He managed other people's money. He still had to face investors who were watching him lose their capital day after day. How did he manage the social cruelty?
His interpersonal strategy was brilliant counter-programming. The natural human instinct when you are losing someone's money is to be apologetic, to shrink, to explain yourself.
Of course.
Nero did the opposite. He handled his investors by projecting what is described as a mild degree of contempt combined with an Olympian calm.
Why is mild contempt effective when you are failing?
Because humans are incredibly sensitive to social cues.
Yeah,
We detect the smallest crack in confidence long before we analyze the data.
that's true.
If you lose money and you show up to a meeting looking like a guilty dog, apologizing and sweating, investors will immediately instinctively categorize you as a loser. You establish the baseline for how they should treat you.
You set the yardstick of your own value.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in Extremistan, short-term performance is meaningless, so there is no absolute measure of how good or bad you are doing in the moment. It is entirely about perception.
So after a brutal string of losses, Nero would meet with clients. He would be unfashionably courteous, impeccably polite, but he would show absolute zero diffidence, no apologies.
Wow.
His posture, his tone, his entire demeanor suggested that he viewed his trading strategy as an elite insurance policy that these investors were incredibly lucky to be allowed to participate in.
He projected the reality of the 10-year timeline into the present moment. And paradoxically, by refusing to apologize, by remaining understated and mildly aloof, he made the investors more confident in him. He dominated the social dynamic.
Which brings us to the absolute climax of Nero's behavioral mastery. This is perhaps the most illustrative anecdote of the entire deep dive, the story of the employee evaluation form.
It is a masterstroke of psychological warfare against the metrics of mediocrity.
Let's set the scene. Early in his career, Nero is working as a trader for a major investment bank. And like all corporate employees, he is subjected to the annual supervisor evaluation.
The dread.
Nero fundamentally despises this process. He knows the evaluation form is designed to judge short-term linear performance.
Right.
It is a tool designed to force traders to become turkeys, to chase tiny daily profits to get a good review, while hiding massive systemic risks from the bank.
The form is the embodiment of the biological trap we discussed earlier. It demands visible, immediate results.
Right. So Nero sits in his boss's office. He listens with complete, unshakable calm as the supervisor delivers a critical evaluation based on these flawed short-term metrics.
Okay.
Finally, the supervisor slides the official piece of paper, the evaluation form, across the desk. Nero picks it up, and he tears it into small pieces right in front of the boss.
Wow. Just right there.
But the genius lies entirely in the execution of the act.
Because if he yells, he loses.
Yes. The speed is the message. He does not rip it up in a fit of rage. He tears it very, very slowly.
Oh.
He deliberately accentuates the contrast between the wildly rebellious nature of destroying an official HR document and the absolute tranquility with which his hands are moving.
Let's dissect the psychology of that moment. Why did that specific action paralyze his supervisor with fear? If Nero had lost his temper, if he had yelled or snatched the paper aggressively, the boss would have understood the interaction.
Right, anger is expected.
Anger is a normal, predictable, linear reaction to a bad review. The boss would have simply fired him for insubordination.
Because anger implies that you care about the review, it implies the boss has power over you.
Precisely. But by moving in slow motion with that undramatic Olympian calm, Nero completely broke the script.
It's brilliant.
He was experiencing an almost aesthetic elation in the elegance of his defiance. He knew the outcome was binary. He would either be fired immediately or he would be left alone forever.
What happened? He was left alone.
He won.
The sheer dignity of the slow-motion care terrified the supervisor. By refusing to react emotionally, Nero signaled absolute, terrifying confidence.
Without a single word.
He communicated, without speaking a word, that the linear metrics of this bank did not apply to him. He was a citizen of Extremistan, and he refused to be judged by the rules of mediocrity.
It is the ultimate rejection of pure cruelty. You cannot humiliate a man who so elegantly and thoroughly rejects your entire premise of reality.
Which brings us full circle to the mission of this deep dive. If you are pursuing the extraordinary, if you are hunting a black swan, you are engaging in a brutal war on three fronts.
Three fronts.
You must fight your own evolutionary biology, which screams at you daily for linear progress. You must endure the excruciating social punishment of the water cooler, the family reunion, and the brother-in-law.
The wallpaper salesman.
Right. And you must protect your own mind, perhaps by building a Bastiani fortress of insulated peers, or by adopting the icy behavioral control of Nero Tulip to survive the daily bleed.
It is a demanding, often painful blueprint for existence. It requires overriding millions of years of human programming.
It really does.
But as we conclude our synthesis of these ideas, I want to offer a final, somewhat provocative perspective. Let's return briefly to Yevgenia and her refusal to read the ending of The Desert of the Tartars.
The idea that she might have been happier waiting in the fort than she was after she achieved success.
Exactly. The assumption we carry is that the antechamber of hope is a prison we must escape. We assume the waiting is the tax we pay for the eventual glory.
Right.
But I want to ask you, the listener, to invert that assumption. If you are currently in that antechamber, if you are enduring the biological stress, absorbing the peer cruelty, bleeding pennies every day in pursuit of your black swan,
What if?
what if the arrival of that success is actually the moment your profound purpose terminates?
Oh, that is a heavy thought.
What if the profound, driving hope you are so desperate to resolve is actually the most vital organizing force of your life?
Wow.
What if the desolate, silent desert you're wandering in right now, constantly scanning the horizon for a breakthrough, is exactly the environment that makes you most fully alive?
That reframes everything. It suggests that maybe the comfortable, predictable, linear staircase of success, the wallpaper salesman's life, is completely devoid of the deep tension that makes life meaningful.
The desert is the point.
Maybe the desert isn't the obstacle. Maybe the desert is the point. Thank you for joining us on this exploration. Wherever you are in your own pursuit, I urge you to look closely at where you might be demanding linear, daily rewards from a world that is fundamentally nonlinear.
Build your fortress.
Build your fortress carefully, manage your bleed, and we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.